Welcome back, everybody, to Maniacal Musics. I'm your host, Jeremy, as always. I'm a king, only to Annie Mae, my last temptation. She was given to me by the Seven Angels. I do what I have to do for payback against Clyde and what he did to her. But, they also call him the Twilight Kid off in Neverland, but we don't listen to those Neverlandians. My co-host, though, has a scheme he cooked up while eating some bologna in Verte Marte. His memory is foggy from his years going into the unknown. He has a reliance on the looking glass as he is so vain there is an amendment against him. Read about it in my letter. It's getting close to the time for the final sacrifice from which there will be no return for him. Chancy motherfucking Greif.
Hi.
And that's right, folks. Your musers are back once again to talk about these albums thrice. And I'll tell you, some variety of albums this week, but we'll get to that in a little bit. Let me first introduce our guests, as always, to help us discuss these great music endurers. Our guest this week is Alon Fenity, Rabbi, the Eclectic Cleric himself.
Eclectic
We are proud to have
Cleric.
Eclectic. I can never pronounce that damn word.
It's a lot of L's and C's just tossed around.
I know. It's a freaking tongue twister, but welcome, Alon. How you doing tonight?
Very good to be here. I love the way you put all the song titles together. It reminds me of running a D&D campaign where I had the Wu-Tang name generator create the villains. It was all the villains were based on Wu-Tang, like
that's awesome.
Wu-Tang Clan members. I realized I'm looking through the list of the songs we're talking about. I was like, yeah, this would make a damn good story. So yeah, I appreciate the effort to string as many titles together as possible.
It's a weekly endeavor that can lead to either great success or horrible failure, just like a D&D campaign. But, well, folks, we have 3 albums for you, of course. But first things first, let's get to know our guest for a second. So, Alon, what really got you into music?
Oh, man, that's a great question. Yeah, I'm trying to remember if I can remember a time in my life before music. My dad used to have a reel-to-reel player. You remember those at all? It's not an 8-track. It's
literally a wheel of tape. Yeah,
it's a wheel of tape. It's the kind you used to have in a recording studio, except much thinner, and you'd have it at home. And he had the George Harrison and Ravi Shankar at not Budokan. They did a concert for Bangladesh. He would play that. He would play the Moody Blues. So I remember that. I remember a cassette tape of Thriller driving to performing arts camp in the summer. I remember one of the counselors there had Rush's Grace Under Pressure on a t-shirt, which is still one of my favorite album covers and a great album. Was the first albums that I remember getting my first CD player, and it's about the time that the Joshua Tree came out. And my dad bought the first CDs my dad bought me for my birthday were that and Stop Making Sense by the Talking Heads. And I've never actually gotten into the Talking Heads, but Joshua Tree still holds up.
Yeah, Talking Heads are. I need to be in a mood to like them. Like, I can't just turn them on any time of the day and be like, this is awesome.
yeah, there's definitely music like that. I don't know if I'm so into David Byrne. I think it might just be his voice that just doesn't do anything.
Yeah, I could see that. I'm more of the I can listen to the Talking Heads semi-frequently. Like I was just listening to them earlier today.
Glad to bring it up, then.
Right?
You could give us some schooling on it. It's fresh on your mind. So yeah, I've just been into music longer than I can remember. I think I remember walking with my beloved grandfather at the Arnold Arboretum, which is not far from you, and him asking me what I wanted to be when I grew up. And I either wanted to be a rabbi or a recording engineer. And I thought that meant you go to MIT. I was going to impress him by being an engineer. But as a kid, it's a long time.
That's awesome.
Intense feelings about music for sure.
Honestly, you could have been both and been DJ Rabbi. Like, that would have been awesome.
I was a DJ in college. I was a jazz DJ.
Oh, shit, there you go.
That was fun. Yeah. That was fun.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, I know Chancy appreciates some good jazz, but me, I'm more picky on my jazz. But Chancy appreciates some good jazz.
Yeah.
But
I yeah.
Oh, go ahead, buddy. Go
No,
ahead.
no. I was just saying, like, yeah. I mean, I can appreciate. I don't know. Jazz is sometimes it's pretty hit and miss with me. Like, I'm more of a sucker for some of those like them standout solo acts like Jaco Pastorius and obviously, of course, like Miles Davis, and there's one particular jazz musician I'm drawing a total blank on right now. I got nothing. I don't even have a
Is
name
it
for
Kenny G?
No, God, no. I would have remembered Kenny G. Who? How dare? How
Kenny
dare?
G, wasn't it, that you remember?
No, I don't. I didn't even think of Kenny G as jazz. I was just like,
No, I
that's
don't think it
elevated.
is. I don't think
that's
it
easy.
is.
That's easy listening.
That's it's what their dentist plays if they run out of Novocaine.
Yeah, it's uneasy listening.
No, they put on some Chuck Mangione because it feels so good while you're in that chair, But
he made a lot of money on those records.
Yeah, for sure. You can't fault him at all. He made so much money.
Actually, so one of my jobs in the music business is working at what was then Henson, but had been A&M Studios, and it was built on Herb Alpert's money.
Oh,
he made a lot of money on those Tijuana brass records. So,
hey, yeah, you can't fault him. I mean, money's money.
Yeah.
Hey, I mean, the amount of royalties Chuck Mangione made from King of the Hill alone is probably keeping him rich to this day. But
from the show King of the Hill.
Oh yeah, they had him as a character on the King of the Hill show regularly, and they played "Feel So Good" so many times in that show.
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, he was like a main. He was a main character in like 2 or 3 episodes.
Oh, I haven't watched enough King of the Hill. My favorite is the Christian rock episode where Hank says,
"Oh,
you're not making Christianity better. You're making rock and roll worse."
That's why people.
When people knew I liked music and wanted to be a rabbi, they're like, "Oh, you're going to make Jewish music?" And I was like, "Heck no! I'm going to make real music and also be Jewish." I don't like mixing things up like that. Never works for me.
Hey, it's how freaking Elvis made it big, so
Yeah.
But
Jeremy.
What it is? Have you not? I mean, it's how Dewey Cox got big too. If you want to go pop culture way, that's a good movie. But
no, you know how much I hate Elvis, and you always got to.
Oh, I know. Oh, because he's dude, literally making the brackets for the Billboard brackets. Oh my God, you know how many years he's on the billboards with like 5 songs. Like
that sounds
But it's basically him and freaking Frankie Valli for like 2 decades straight. But
what's interesting about, and I'm watching what you're doing online, is whether you like music or not, you kind of have to contend with certain music. Right? You have to like acknowledge John Coltrane and Elvis and REM, and there's plenty of bands I don't like that you have to kind of like you have to place them in your sort of musical constellation because they exist and they've influenced bands you love and they're connected to other things that you need to experience. And so to understand what's happening, you have to kind of incorporate. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, there's always going to be, I mean, country music as a whole for me, I have to contend with, even though I don't like it.
Yeah.
And Taylor Swift. So, but what album did you want to bring us, Salon? And why'd you want to bring this one?
I have no idea. I just brought the album I was listening to a lot at the time. I was going to go for Khruangbin, but I talk about them all the time. So I went back to something I kind of rediscovered, which was Twilight by the Twilight Singers. I think it's Greg Dully's first album after the Afghan Wigs, and it's a very radical departure to much kind of quieter late evening music, less bar rock. And then he returns to that sort of louder, more aggressive sound as the Twilight Singers go on, and certainly when I saw them live. But yeah, Twilight by the Twilight Singers was really just, that was it for me in that era. A lot of good evenings with that music.
Well, I guess I'll go first on this one, because I mean, when I first was sampling this Seat album you wanted to bring to try to figure out what I wanted to bring, which the two are not related at all in a freaking way, but
well, they're both from the same year. They were all like within a year of each other. All the albums we selected were within a year of each other.
Oh, I do that a lot for a
Nice.
theme. I do that a lot for a theme, actually, and I actually didn't play on that one even on this one.
Yeah.
But I'm listening to like samples of a couple different songs. I'm just like, what the freak is this? And at first I'm like, what the hell is this? Like, I don't get what the hell this is supposed to be even. And then like I think I listened to like one track all the way through, and I'm like, all right, a little more sense going through here now, a little more sense. And then when I finally listened to the full album this morning, like first thing at work, I was listening to this album, which very good morning album, very good, easy way to start your day and get woken up. And I actually enjoyed it to some degree. I mean, I'm not gonna say I loved every song on it, God no, but there are some songs I couldn't stand. But overall, it was actually an enjoyable experience. I never heard of the Afghan Wigs, and when I was reading the description, I'm like, who the hell are they? Like, I never even heard of that.
I think they're from the Massachusetts area, actually. I can't remember. Maybe I'm thinking Dinosaur Jr., but I can't recall. So you missed out. You missed out the best way to listen to that music.
Yeah, I mean,
with a loved one in a quiet room late at night, it is magical.
I can kind of sense that. And I mean, a lot of it was really like well done. It reminded me of some more like it reminded me of almost of when like a symphonic metal band gets jazzy in one of their songs. Like that's what a lot of it reminded me of. Is like that combination.
When does a symphonic metal band get jazzy? That sounds like Spinal Tap at the end.
Right.
Nightwish is a good example of it.
I was thinking that's the only one I could think of was Nightwish. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's a few other examples, but I think Blind Guardian did it a couple times too. But I mean, and I know a couple Dogfish and Disco songs. It kind of reminds me of in a way as well. But
yeah. I was gonna say DFD would be a solid one outside of course, Guar's beautiful little jazz song from last week. So I mean, there's that as well.
Yeah, I tried showing Guar to my wife, by the way, Chancy, and she doesn't really. She said the guitar is good, but the lyrics and the singer are horrible.
Yeah,
you have to go to see Guar live to make it work.
I was just getting ready to say that.
It would definitely be better. Oh, I mean, well, no, now that Odorous is dead, I wouldn't want to. But
yeah, I was just getting ready to say that as well because, like, I mean, honestly, it's so funny as far like if I was gonna do like a ratio, the band that I've seen the most in the least amount of time was Guar. Now that doesn't necessarily mean because I've only seen them like before Odorous died. I only saw them like 3 or 4 times, but like it was like every time they were there. So like every other year, every couple of years there for a stint, I was going to a Guar show, and that's like I said, it's like go ahead.
No, I would put the ratio for me on haven't listened to them would totally go to a concert of theirs.
Oh, for sure. Because I mean.
Yeah. I don't think I know anything of their music, and if you invited me to a concert of theirs tonight, I would get off this call and go with you. Like,
oh, that'd be so.
Always
awesome.
wanted to go to one of their shows. So, yeah.
Oh yeah. When Odorous was alive, it was. I mean, they're still good. I don't mean to ever disparage the new singer after Odorous died, but it's one of those things where, because they just essentially brought back one of the prior members. The band itself's been like a 20 some odd year evolution of a whole bunch of different people and.
Yeah.
It's so great how one thing slips into another, and if somebody leaves, then like a relative character comes on who's like related to the character that left somehow, but it's not the same. But like I mentioned it last week specifically, but like the one thing that I really enjoyed outside of the interesting live show and the lore and all the other stuff they went behind with it was it was like a sneaky way for them to both pull off a good show and provide like a vast majority of the crowd with cold water at hot festivals. Cause like they'll hose you down with like fake blood, like alien blood, human blood. It's
a safety precaution.
Oh yeah. You gotta make sure you have green. Yeah. You gotta have green blood, so that way it's alien and not just humans.
Yeah.
But like at the same time though, when you're up front, like front and center, and it gets to feel like it's 120 degrees up there, and all of a sudden you get blasted with like a beheaded John McCain because the first time I saw them was in 2008. So they had Barack Obama, John McCain, and Hillary Clinton on stage, and they just like disfigured them and covered everybody in fake blood. It was so refreshing because of the cold water, not the disfigurement and dismemberment on stage, but like, you know, it was crazy.
It was a simpler time when we could laugh about politics.
Yeah, I know, right?
Well, I'm sure you go to one of the concerts now. They got a freaking Trump and Kamala freaking thing up there. They're disfiguring, I'm sure, but
for sure. That's kind of the they legitimately they go unilateral. They just like they stick to the shtick of just wanting to kill humanity as a whole.
Good. It's a good stick. It really is. But yeah, I mean, as far as the Twilight Singers, I relatively enjoyed the album. There was a few of them that made it into my liked list on Spotify, so I am happy I heard them. Actually,
I recommend using it in a romantic moment. You really capture the value of the album.
Dude, I got 2 kids and one on the way. Like, ain't a romantic time ever.
No romantic time.
Ever. I wish. But if we get romantic time, it's like 10 minutes when the kids are asleep. Like, then it's, sleepy time. But, but Chancy, what did you think of the Twilight Singers?
So, it's a routine for me. For my first round of listening to the music, I will play the music while I play video games. And I've been getting into Destiny 2 again a lot, which is like a first-person shooter for like it's basically like Halo upgraded, so to speak. So funny thing is I started with your album first, and I started into this PvP lobby, and like at first I'm like, for the first couple games I'm just getting the shit kicked out of me because I keep like listening to the music. I'm like, what the fuck is this? Like, it's been so long since I've listened to something like that when I first heard it I thought it was like a trick. So for the first couple tracks I'm listening and I'm like, and I just keep getting killed over and over and over again, and finally I'm like, oh, I gotta pay attention, I'm gonna lose this game. So I turn around and start playing, and like another couple tracks into it, I realized that I have now started another PvP game, and I am at the top of the lobby, just running around, laying waste to groups of people with this easy listening just going off in my ears, just like da 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 da, like just going along, just laying waste, killing everything. And it's one of those things where like at first I was like, I hate this stuff, and then like I'm listening to it, and then I'm like, I hate myself because I'm doing so well listening to this. And then I got through more of it, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna have to listen to this again because this ain't actually that bad. It was one of those like shock, shock.
PvP apparently.
Oh yeah, it
cells to kill.
Yeah, it brought me into focus, so that way I could just focus my rage onto the players in the lobby. Just
so much zen,
so much zen from the slaughter. Talk about the Twilight, the Twilight of their gaming experience.
Yeah. I don't remember what I used to listen to when I would play like Borderlands. I don't know. I feel like I would just listen to the game because I like the sound of all the gunshots.
See, yeah, I can have it to where it does both, which is pretty awesome. I can have like the music in the background and still be able to hear the gunshots and everything. But like, yeah, for me, it's always been like I have like a randomized, like a seriously random list. I've got like thousands of songs, and it's everything from like we were talking about with like Gwar to death metal to jazz to R&B to Motown, like the gamut. I've even got a few songs from Paganini and Chopin on there. That always throws me for a loop when I'm in the lobby and all of a sudden Paganini comes on there with that violin and you're like, wait, hold on, okay, I'll allow it. That's kind of that's kind of why I stuck with it for like the entirety of the album on the PvP lobby, because it was like, wow, this is like when I was listening to that classical music and just wrecking house, and then it translated one for one. It was great. I got an honorable mention, and it even brought me back around. So like, it started off with a shock and awe of like, what is this? To a shocked that I was like, you know what, this actually ain't all that bad. And then I listened to it again to get my list figured out, and I was like, you know what, actually, I'm gonna have to put a honorable mention on here because this actually ain't that bad.
Yeah. So we both kind of had a turnaround on the album. But what were your top 5 on it, Alon? Kind of dying to hear comparisons on these.
I don't know. I mean, I've always listened to that as an album straight through. I think the first half is stronger than the second half. So if I were to pick song on song, it's 5 out of the first 6 songs. I think the second half isn't bad, but it's much more like spread out sound and kind of much more distant sounding. So it's less composition by composition.
I actually think I 100% agree with that whole statement. It worked. My top 5 kind of goes in line with that. I mean, I actually had 2 honorable mentions for this album because I could not, like, there's no way I couldn't. But my honorable mentions were Twilight, just because I thought it was a cool way to end the album, and it was an interesting song. I think that was like one of the few songs at the end of this album I liked, actually. My other honorable mention was Via de Marte because it's just like a weird, funky song.
Oh, it's a great bass line too. Yeah. That was on my list.
I dig those type of songs. I really do. And my number 5 was the Twilight Kid because it was kind of like a cool story, and the music.
That's the opener, right? It's been a long time since.
It's the opener. Yeah, it's the opener. Yeah. And my number 4 was Annie Mae because, again, a really cool story. And for some reason, I always like girl names that have May as like the second name. I don't know why. It brings out like a Western thing to me. It's just, I don't know. Number 3 was Last Temptation because I love religious based songs to some degree because as a paranormal podcaster, we talk about religion a lot. So I mean, Last Temptation was cool. The lyrics were fucking awesome, and the whole song just blew me away, kind of. Number 2 was King Only, and that's where I kind of was thinking of Nightwish a little bit because like the jazzy undertone of that whole song is like it reminds me of Slow Love Slow by Nightwish a little bit.
Okay, I'll have to check that out. Slow Love Slow is the song?
Yeah. It's kind of got the same like kind of got the same tempo almost in a way. Okay. But I mean King Only was a good song, and my number 1 was Clyde.
Yeah.
I honestly at this moment don't remember exactly why, but it just blew me away when I heard it. Like it just made the top of the list and it didn't move for like the rest of the album. So I freaking love that song. I honestly can't even hear it in my head right now. Because it was so early this morning I listened to this, but it was a damn good song. It blew me away. I remember that much. So that was my top 7, I guess. But Chancy, what were your 6 for this album?
So my honorable mention was Into the Street. I thought that was pretty. Go ahead. Go ahead, man.
Yeah, I was gonna say that was a pretty dope song. I almost had put it on my list, but I kind of was trying to restrain myself at that point.
For sure, I can get that. So number 5 for me was East 17th. I thought that was pretty cool as well. I honestly like. I can see where you guys are coming from as far as the top half being a bit stronger than the bottom half, but like for me, I kind of liked it bits and pieces here and there, all the way around.
Which half was better for Destiny 2?
I would say the first one.
That's where you're really in the zone. Like,
your
target's locked on. Okay.
Right.
No, good. You got to keep that ready. Yeah.
Yep. You got to be at the ready. But number 4 was Railroad Lullaby. I thought that was pretty cool as well. My number 3 was Verita Merte. I thought that just like I said, like you guys were saying earlier, it was definitely a super awesome song. Number 2 for me was Love. I thought that was pretty interesting as well.
That was on my list too. Yeah.
And number 1 for me was definitely Clyde. Like that was the one where I had started the new game off and I was at the top of the leaderboard. So I was like, all right, okay.
If I can't give someone the album, that's the song I usually give them.
Yeah, for sure.
I think it's a sit down, listen to the whole album late at night. But
Yep.
if you need just like a sample, that would be the song I tend to go with to put it on a mixtape or a playlist or something.
Yeah, for sure. I can see that. And I can also see why it would be something you would, take as a whole rather than rather than just the pieces and parts.
Yeah.
Well,
I just think it has a nice flow.
For sure.
Yeah. Oh, the whole album has a great flow. I mean, it really went well together. Like the whole album, I didn't want to turn it off and actually make phone calls at work. I wanted to keep listening, so I did. But I just kept it
Very
going.
cool.
But
Very cool.
I mean, which I never want to make calls anyway, so that's not a big deal. I hate fucking cold call. I hate when I have to do cold call days. It fucking annoying. But all right, well, folks, that's our guest album. And I guess we'll go to my album next because I'm trying to say something else for last, kind of. But for this week, I didn't know what the hell to match with the Twilight Singers. I really didn't. I couldn't think of anything that was lined up in any way. I mean, yeah, I could have went the easy way and brought Nightwish or something like that, but I didn't want to do that. But reading Alon's profile on the site I found him on, I was like, all right, you know what? I'm like, he's a dungeon master and a rabbi. I'm like, I'm gonna bring something that's kind of related to both worlds in ways.
Yeah, I get it now. Yeah.
And I'm like, I think he would enjoy Avantasia's The Metal Opera Part 2 because I brought Part 1 for Chancy and another guest many moons ago.
I was curious how you picked Part 2. I was like, what happened to Part 1? Does it hold up? Yes, you'd already gone through Part 1 in another episode.
We went through Part 1 in another episode, and Part 1's amazing, but to me, Part 2 it was their first 2 real CDs, like with this supergroup, and I feel like Part 2 is really, really, really singing home. Part 1 was a good intro album, but it's just Part 2 really sings it home, and it was right. I kept saying I wanted to bring this album for for like a year now, probably. I don't even remember who the hell the guest was in the first one. It's been so long, but I was like, I'm like, I got this Part 2. I'm like, and he's a dungeon master, and this is an album about an epic quest, Lord of the Rings style in a way. So I'm like, all right, let's go with it. Let's go with it. I think it'll play well into everything.
Much obliged. I get it now. Yeah.
Yeah, when I don't know what to bring for an album, I try to look at the guest and I'm like, what relate to them? Because I could look to the year and probably brought the same album. Since you said that, I didn't even think of that.
We're all within a year. I don't know if they were exact same year, but yeah, they were all early 2000s.
Yeah, I think mine came out in 2002, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong, but somewhere around there. But so yeah, that's why I brought it. And I mean, I think this album is a pure powerhouse album. Like there's very little I don't like about this album. So I didn't pull a Jeremy and take the whole album and rank it because, like I said, there are some songs in this album I can do without. But for pretty much the whole album is freaking up. Listen through album I can enjoy for always. And if you put Part 1 and Part 2 together, it's a long experience, but it's freaking enjoyable itself. So, but dying to hear, Alon, what did you think of Avantasia?
So it's definitely one of those things right now as you're talking about it. Like I like it more thinking about it. For me, it had elements of things like operatic rock, like Queen, that I'm not a fan of. But it did have elements like Iron Maiden from the '80s that I really loved. Like that, somewhere in the vocal register was similar to Bruce Dickinson, I think is their singer.
Well, Tobias Sammet, the lead singer and creator of the supergroup, his original band is called Ed Guy, and
I saw that online.
They're around the same time as Maiden, so they were very similar sounding.
Okay, that fits. I mean, there were places where the musicianship was really incredible. Like there was a lot of kick drum stuff that was really hard to pull off. There were some really fast and fun riffs. Yeah, I mean, when we get to top 5, I'll tell you. I don't have the songs in front of me musically that I can tell you exactly what part of it. I wrote some notes. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't for me, but it was also enjoyable. So yeah, nice change of pace for me. I don't think I would like pull it up on my own. But But I like being exposed to, like when I first heard Nightwish a year or two ago, it's like, oh, this is good. Not, it's not my zone, but it's good.
It's actually funny because that's the way I found Avantasia originally, is because they were suggested artists under Nightwish on Apple Music back in the day. So I checked them out, and like it blew me away right away, and I freaking started listening to every album they put out. At that point, it was freaking incredible. So
I was trying to put together from like the old podcast listings and a few of the episodes I listened to. Are you the European metal guy and Chancy's the new metal guy, or it mixes a little both?
It mixes. I mean, it mixes into a little of both, I'd say, at least for me. But okay. I mean, I like a lot of different types of metal. But I mean, yeah, I'm definitely the one who is more in love with European, like symphonic metal. Okay. I mean, Chancy likes European, like black metal, stuff like that. But I mean, I'm more the guy that goes like the symphonic route, the operatic route. Or did I misspeak for you, Chancy?
I mean, no. I mean, you hit the nail close enough, it'll go into the board. But I mean, I like black metal to a certain degree. I thought it was pretty funny considering that you're like, are you the one that likes European metal when he brings a European like metal supergroup on the show? And then you're like, is Chancy the one that likes the new metal? And the album I picked literally is described as a new metal album. I don't really see that as the case. No, I mean, but because I was
looking back on the old picks, like I can't remember. No. Man 5000. I assume that was you, Chancy.
That was me. Yep.
There was some other European metal, and I'm just guessing who picked which ones.
Oh no, I just thought it was hilarious. Oh no, I thought it was hilarious. I thought it was hilarious because of the exact 1-to-1 correlation for right now. Because
that's where it started. I'm like, one of these guys is a European metal guy, and one of these is like a new metal guy. I mean, not there's like over.
No, yeah, I got you.
But I could feel, feel the vibe looking at some of the old picks.
What can I say? About 15 years ago, Nightwish opened a door for me, and I used it and went through like basically the whole symphonic metal list on Wikipedia of all the artists and listened to every single album they all put out, and European metal kind of stuck out to me more than the American version of the same thing. So it's just the way it worked. I mean, trust me, I wish I lived in Europe. Whacking open air is my dream vacation. But I'm
sorry, dude. I don't know if that's how you properly pronounce that location or not, but you just saying whacking open air. I know you're.
That was the name of a festival or something. Is that a place?
No, it is. It is the name of a festival, and I'm pretty sure it's in like a specified. I don't remember it. It might be a roving location, but I thought it was like stationary.
It's stationary. It's always in a country. It's always in I want to say Germany.
I thought so too, but the way you said it made it sound like you were saying whacking in the open air. Like I was like, wait, what the fuck?
You got to watch out who's around.
What in the name of Megan's Law's going on over here?
Chancy, my favorite Ween song is "Dick Blowing in the Wind," but
ballad.
But what did you think of this time around with Avantasia, Chancy? Now that you finally got to hear the completion of this 2-disc set.
Honestly, if I would have never went another day in my life ever having to round out this 2-part system, I would have died a happy man. But
can I interrupt with a story? Just it's related.
Please, yeah. No,
so yeah. I don't know if you've ever read the book, The 3-Body Problem. The book's pretty good, but it's long. It's like 800 pages. I'm on page like 700, and I realize I just bit into a trilogy of long books.
Oh no!
I committed to one long book. I committed to 1,000 pages, not 3,000 pages. So you're like, man, I didn't know there'd be another homework assignment after this. Yeah.
No, I mean, and on top of that, there's also the just between the horrorcore and the European metal kind of just barrage, it seems like every time I turn around, Jeremy's got like twisted ICP horrorcore rap or like Nightwish, Avantasia, some type of symphonic metal. although I do have positive things to say. Like, I always want to lead out with the funny stuff because that, like, getting you to pop like that was huge. That was hilarious. But the one thing that I always had a problem with in regards to like this style of music, because like, I mean, I was born in 85. My memory bank started kind of getting made at the end of the hair metal kind of thing. So like, I was really surrounded by a lot of that sound in my formative years. And the one thing I always noticed, to Jeremy's point previously about American symphonic metal, if you want to call it that, would be either you had a good guitar player or a good singer, never both at the same time. There are obviously a few shining examples that stick out, but like, for the most part, it was either one or the other. And sometimes there was both, but it was like a very short period of time before somebody went somewhere else and either started a new band that also got famous, or like just some other type of scenario like that. But then you have the super group here, and I'm listening to it, and the guitar's really good, and the singing's really good, and all the way around, it's almost like you can't really find anything wrong with it. And then that's when you realize, holy shit, that's what's fucking wrong with it. Like, there's nothing wrong here, and that's what's wrong here. Like, you got really good guitar playing, you got really good lyrics, you got really good, singing and melodic projection and everything like that.
You think it was too
And
pretty?
yes. Yeah. Yes. But
there were a couple places where I was like, this is a little too pretty.
Right. But at the same time, though, I still had, like you were saying, I definitely I had fun doing it. I had fun listening to it. Obviously, I still have my reservations and hiccups with a little bit more, recover. I guess between the first and second one was long enough that I could have recovered, but all the other things. I honestly, the 5 songs that I picked, I honestly, all 5 of these top 5 may as well basically just be a giant number 1. Because like, out of the 5 songs that I picked, I liked all 5 of them equally, and it wasn't just a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, see, and that's the great thing is like this first album this first storyline they did, because they do storylines basically. They didn't even get like that many big names because it was just a new thing, and they got like a few other European singers and guitar players and drummers to jump in on it. They didn't get like, now they get, God, who they get a who's who now of everybody in freaking European and American metal. But I mean,
but this project is still going on.
Oh, they just finished their latest trilogy a couple years ago.
Okay.
It's a few years always between albums, because with all these big names, it takes a long time to get them to all have time to work together on when they're out doing their own work too. But I mean, it's still going on. They haven't stopped releasing albums. They actually, the last trilogy they just did was freaking phenomenal, But more of actually kind of a paranormal trilogy. It was kind of cool. They went more to the ghostly realm with it. But this trilogy is more classic symphonic metal with epic quest, and Lord of the Rings type of Middle Earth stories and stuff like that. Like, they go through themes of what they're doing. But I will say that, I mean, on this one, I definitely had 2 honorable mentions, because this is a great album. Not all this, like I said, not all the songs are great though. My first honorable mention is No Return, because I love the guitar in that freaking. The lyrics are hit or miss on that one to me, but the guitar is just fucking incredible. And I mean, and funny enough, I like the songs that are less Tobias and more of the guest singers. I think Tobias's voice is just, some of the stuff he tries to do with it for this super group, it doesn't work. And Ed Guy, his voice is perfect for that band. But my number 6 was The Looking Glass, because the story behind that is freaking awesome. And I love the singer in it. I think it's Michael Kiske from Halloween, if I'm not mistaken, but I could be wrong. My number 5 is Into the Unknown, because all together. Just like same as Chancy said, like my top 5 could all like be ones. They're freaking all incredible songs that I've been listening to for years and will never stop listening to. But number 5 is Into the Unknown because I love the line "Dreamers come and go, but a dream's forever." Like truer statement you can't freaking get. My number 4 is Neverland because for some reason, I like songs that kind of tie into the like different universes in books and literature, and the fact that ties into like the whole Peter Pan thing a little bit is kind of cool.
The vocal hook in the chorus is great though. I mean that's my
Yeah,
number one because that's a strong chorus.
I mean, and who doesn't want to be young forever? So like that's what that song's basically about. Number 3 is The Final Sacrifice because it's kind of got like an epic Lord of the Rings like climatic finish to the whole thing. Like it's just, and I like it when they make like it sound with what I call like Middle Earth metal. Like it's where it sounds like you're in The Witcher, or it sounds like you're in Game of Thrones or Lord of the Rings. Like the background music kind of sounds like that. My number 2 is Memory because whenever this band does a song about like mental health, it's always a phenomenal song. So Memory is no exception. And of course, my number 1 has to be the opening track because it is, I think, 14 minutes of fucking glory. The Seven Angels is one of the best storyline written songs I've ever heard, and it's got literally every singer that's on the whole album in one song, freaking doing a phenomenal job, each playing their own roles. Like it's basically like a freaking D&D game. They're all playing their own characters, like in the freaking album. That's a great part.
Okay.
But what were your top 5, Alon? I'm kind of dying to hear.
Well, I thought that first song was like several songs, so I didn't pick it. I was like, what part of this do I really like? I love Neverland. Memory had a great guitar riff. I don't remember enough about each of them specifically, but I wrote down No Return, Final Sacrifice, and Chalice of Agony. And I might have written Chalice of Agony just because that's a freaking great title. But yeah,
It's a good. The guitar in that song, the guitar in Chalice of Agony is fucking incredible too. And
I think
and
the
drums
songs
in
I'd
that
come
one.
back to would be Neverland and Memory. Like there's something there. I forget which one was really. I think Final Sacrifice or No Return was really fast and had a lot of kick drum stuff that was going on, and I really liked that.
Memory did, yeah, because I believe
Memory.
it's Tico Tokika or something like that. He's a Finnish drummer and he's incredible. I think he's from Stradivarius, if I'm not mistaken. But some of these people have been on so many bands, I freaking lose track of what bands they've been on, which ones they haven't, because they jump around. In the 90s, 2000s, they jumped around bands like it was going out of style. But Chancy Ponce, what were your top 5?
So it's funny because between the two of you, you guys both literally named off all of them. Number 5 for me was Chalice of Agony, and I honestly, all 5 of these songs were picked mostly because of the guitar in them. Like I said, number 5, Chalice of Agony. Number 4 is Neverland. Number 3 was Memory. Number 2 was The Final Sacrifice. And then number 1 was No Return.
Oh my god, that's the same. No, those were the 5. You picked the same.
Yeah.
Wow, that's neat.
Yeah, that's funny.
Okay, that's cool. Yeah, that's interesting. Those are the 5. That's really cool. That came up the same for me. Yeah. Well, Chancy had some unkind words about your album. I'll throw some unkind words about the album he picked when you're ready.
Oh, well, it's that time, actually, because, folks, it is time to go to the last album. So, Chancy, what album did you want to bring this week, and why the fuck do you want to bring this one?
Well, I went to YouTube Music, hit shuffle, and the first song that came up was one of the songs on this album. And I hadn't brought this album before. And I haven't been able to actually pull a one-off on my shuffle run in a hot minute. So I was like, sold to the man with gray in his hair, put it out there. It's Flaw is the name of the band, and the album's called Through the Eyes. And I came across the album when I was younger, obviously. I was in like high school, somewhere in that vicinity, either just out of high school or my early 20s, one of the two. I don't. What year did the album come out again? I don't know. What it was all within 1 year.
2002.
I think it was
so
2001. Yeah, I think
yeah. So I was like 16 when this album came out, and I really enjoyed the combination of the melodics and the gutturals or the dissonant notes coming from the same person. Because a lot of times in that specific period of time for me, I was coming across a lot of bands like Mushroom Head and Slipknot and multiple singers, different stuff. I really like Slipknot because they kind of focused on one singer, but you had like Mushroom Head, they had two singers. 40 Below Summer, The Bunny the Bear, like all these bands have two, like one does melodic, one does dissonant tones. But then, like I said, then you had this one guy doing both of them. Kind of reminded me of a more depressed version of like American Head Charge minus the industrial metal portion of it all. And the subject matter spoke to me. Because, essentially it's the singer, the guy who created who helped put the band together. It's basically processing like his childhood trauma, like the suicide of his, I think it was like a step parent or
it was his mother.
Yep, there we go.
Unless I'm mixing it up, his stepfather was abusive and his mother.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. That was it.
His stepfather was abusive, and his mother committed suicide when he was a kid.
Yeah. Yep, that was right. That was it. And
yeah, I looked into the history of it.
And honestly, when I saw Avantasia was getting listed there, I was thinking to myself, I wanted to fucking kickstart a 12 gauge real quick. And then I hit shuffle and that shit came on and I was like, Jesus, here we go. Because, this shit is the embodiment of I'm fucking sad and I want to talk about it, which understandably fucking so, considering the subject matter. But at the same time, I really always did find it very impactful. And it did get me through a pretty dark time in my own life as well at that period. It's kind of like one of them albums that came into my life when I needed it to be there. And a lot of it helped me for getting my own vocal register for like melodic singing, because being in choir and doing the practice bits and whatnot, you don't get to practice with heavy music very, very often. And then it also gave me the ability to work on my own dissonant notes as well.
Well,
so yeah, that's a nutshell.
I've been dying for this, so I'll let Alon tell what he thinks of your album, Chancy.
Well, right on.
I'm more interested. I was thinking about this since neither of the albums were really straight up the middle for me, but just what moves people about an album. Your description of the album that comes at the time you need to hear it. I can think of albums like that for me, and so I'm less inclined to slam it. I think
oh no. If it's funny, say
it. No, they're more technical complaints. I don't like sort of the shouted parts.
Yeah.
There's an idea in the pulpit that you preach from your scars, not your wounds, which is to say you preach things, you speak about them, you make art about them once you process them more. And this felt very first draft of the raw emotional experience, which has ups and downs. I was not a fan of this era of music. And I think looking back at the loudness wars, like I was doing a lot of research for this conversation. And so do you guys know what the loudness wars are? Can I just have to explain that?
Yeah. I know the phrase, and I know like a brief history of it, but I've never.
This is like peak loudness wars when everything was hyper compressed and cranked up. And the problem I had in terms of the production, which is interesting, the guy who produced some other stuff I liked. It's like everything is very flattened on top of each other. There was some good writing and some great bass lines. I really liked My Letter and What I Have to Do, but not a band that I would ever gravitate toward. Just too raw, too youthful in a certain way that's unprocessed, and then the production style in that era just never connected for me. Whereas like if you go 5 years earlier with Brendan O'Brien and sort of grunge into like King's X, the way those drums were recorded and those albums were recorded really did it for me. So some of it's just there's not a lot of space in the recording. And I need that for my ears to kind of play around through it.
No, I can see that. I can understand that. For sure.
But I like that thought of like the album that comes to you when you need it. I'm trying to think about in my life those albums.
I think everybody's had those albums in their lives when they need them at the most. But for me, it always kind of gravitated to hardcore rock. I don't know. I mean, hardcore rap. I don't know why, but you know,
for me, it was always Rush. Always Rush.
Rush, solid.
It was always Rush that came to me, and I even to this day I look back and think about like why, what that band was there to teach me and give me.
Yeah, actually, I guess Motley Crue did the same thing at one point, but okay, I had to light a cigarette for this because you know I have a feeling this is gonna be so good I'm gonna need a cigarette after. But see, I never heard of Flaws. I saw the cover of this album that Chancy sent me, and I'm like, oh, a rap album, cool. So honestly, the cover, I thought it looked almost like a freaking Tupac or Biggie cover. Like, so I was like, all right, a rap album, cool. And I'm like, and then I start playing it, and I'm like, what the fucking fresh hell is this? And I look back into the band a little bit, and I'm like, I'm like, one, this is not new metal. Two, how dare they call this new metal? And three,
right?
I'm like, who the fuck are these wannabe Godsmack, wannabe Drowning Pool sons of bitches? Like, this band seems like they want to be the bands that were popular in 2001, 2002, but they couldn't quite reach that bar. I mean, the fact that they're still putting out albums to this day kind of mystifies and confuses me. But I mean, maybe they got better over time. I don't freaking know. I really don't want to jump down that rabbit hole unless I have nothing else to do.
Maybe there's a sequel to this album for you. Come back at another, Flaw Through the Eyes, Part 2, Through the Head.
Well, Chancy, Chancy, I will say that does happen. I'm going to need to borrow your 12 gauge. But I actually end up enjoying this album a little more once I looked into what the songs meant to the singer. And like, once I kind of got that, I'm like, all right. I'm like, he doesn't have the emotional range that Papa Roach did back in those days with their albums with the same kind of like dealing with the same shit. I'm like, and he kind of sounds like he wants to be fucking, what's his name from Godsmack, the singer? I can't think of his name right now. Fuck it.
Sully Erna.
Sully. I want to say Edda for some reason.
I heard elements of Tool actually. Tool and a little bit of like early Rage Against the Machine.
That would explain why, because I fucking hate Tool. But
yeah,
I have a strong hate. Chancy's brought Tool on once or twice, and one of the albums is better than the other, but I fucking have a strong hatred for Tool. But Rage, I could do. I could do Rage Against the Machine. I like them, but it's, I don't know. I heard so many elements of other bands, and it's like they wanted to get in the scene like 2001 and be this great, awesome band, and they just kind of fell a little short. I mean, they went for the high bar, and they kind of just smacked their nose off it and bled everywhere. But so, I mean, that's kind of what I thought of this album. I did have 3 honorable mentions somehow. I don't know how. It just kind of happened. But
so with 3 honorable mentions, that means you picked 8 out of 11 of the songs. Am I doing that math?
Yeah, right.
You hated this album, but only 3.
I can't explain how shit happens. It just does. I mean, the first couple of tracks I fucking hated. But Chancy, what were your top 5 of this album?
How quaint. I also picked 8 out of 11 of these songs.
Quaint's my moment.
So for me, honestly, it was my first honorable mention was Payback. Number 7.
That's funny.
Number 7 for me was Amendment. Number 6 was My Letter.
Damn it.
Number 5 was Resilience. Number 4 was What Do I Have to Do? Number 3 was Best I Am. Number 2 was Hole. And for me, I chose for my number 1 the acoustic version of Only the Strong, because I always gravitated the most towards that specific track. Well, it's technically a hidden track, but I went.
Remember how great hidden tracks used to be?
Oh, for sure.
When I was like done. I thought the album was done. I was talking to my kids, and I was like, "Wait, there's more music." I forgot hidden tracks. They were the best.
My favorite hidden track of all time. I don't remember which Tool album it is. I think it might be Lateralis. Where on there's a secret song on there, but like when you first put it in there, it shows like 99 tracks on the album, and you're like, wait, what? But then after the X amount of tracks on the regular album, it just starts like every couple seconds, it just goes, 13, 14, 15, 16. You're like, what the fuck's happening? And then all of a sudden it just breaks out into one of these hidden songs and then back into the nothingness. And you're just like, what the fuck just happened?
Yeah, I love that. I love that. I think there was a Cracker album that had 99 tracks. The hidden track was a good song. That's what I remember. So yeah.
Oh yeah. I miss that.
I don't know if you could. There's no point in doing it with Spotify.
No,
the streaming service. I can't imagine how you'd make it work.
They essentially they put it on the last track, really.
Yeah. I mean, you have to, or you do, you do like Offspring does it, and it works on Spotify, where you just like have like a minute of silence, like at the end of the last song, and then like it starts playing, like it just starts playing as part of the last track, like.
So my top, the 2 that I liked the most were My Letter and What I Have to Do. I mentioned that, and then I wasn't so in love with that much else, but Scheme. I like Best I Am, I think, and Out of Whack was okay.
Yeah.
I didn't put them in like so tight in order as you guys did. I just kind of grabbed 5 that I like that are most memorable. I didn't put like top, in order.
Well, I mean, we do this. Yeah, I mean, we do this on a weekly basis. So for us, it's like basically
you guys got it down to a science,
right?
Yeah. Actually, and funny enough, Musers of the World, I didn't even announce this yet. I should have fucking said in the beginning. But this is technically our 100th regular episode.
Wow. Yeah, you're right. You are right.
I literally was looking at my message to Chancy earlier this week, like saying that this would be the 100th episode, because I did the math last week, and I was like, I totally just blanked on until now. I was like, holy shit, yeah, it is our 100th episode. So there you go. That means we literally have talked about 300-ish albums. There's been episodes where we did 2 albums, there's episodes where we did like 4 or 5 albums. So we've done around 300-ish albums at this point. So, and we still haven't even touched on a lot of music artists. A lot. So, I mean, damn. But you ready to laugh, Chancy? Because my number 8 was Payback, and my number 7 was Amendment.
All right.
I don't know if you saw my face when you said those 2. I was like literally like, oh, I was like hoping we would line up the whole thing, but that just died at that point. But
yeah,
I mean, Payback and Amendment were decent songs. I think when I put them on the bottom of the list, it was just basically the guitar that kept it going. But
yeah,
number six was Get Up Again, because I saw that they had the most listens on Spotify. So I always look for that song to see like what other people think is the best song. And Get Up Again was actually a decent song. I like the message in it. So that was my last honorable mention. Number 5 was What I Have to Do, because I can fucking relate to that song like a lot. So I mean, you do what you have to do in life. Number 4 was Scheme, because that was a pretty dope song. Number 3 was Best I Am, because I like the message in that song too. I mean, I like this guy's message. I just don't like his delivery. But my number 2 was My Letter, because that song, that's the first song on this album that really hit me, and I was like, okay, I need to start taking this album a little more seriously at this point. Because that's when I had to go look up what the hell it meant. I'm like, what the hell is this letter about? Like, is it a suicide letter? Like, what the hell is this? But turns out I was right. And my number 1 was Reliance, because that song was actually phenomenal. I think that might be the only, that and My Letter, I think, are the only 2 songs in this whole thing I put in my freaking like list on Spotify. So, which is now up to like 5,500 songs. So I rarely hear anything, but I put those 2 on because Reliance was phenomenally well done. I don't know. I might have to listen to more of this band just to see if I can if they get better as they get older or whatnot. But overall,
Yeah, I think this was only their second album.
I think so. Yeah.
It was definitely early in their career. I know that, but I don't know. New metal, and the fact they call them new metal kind of threw me off in the beginning because I'm like, they're not new metal. I'm like, they are not freaking. I mean, they're a wannabe Linkin Park, if anything. They're not Linkin Park. They're not freaking Copper Roach. I mean, I saw one of their influences with Korn, and I'm like, all right, I kind of can see this. But it's just, I don't know. I don't know. I really don't know what to think about this group. I really just, partly, I want to hate them. I don't want to like them. And I don't really like them. So that's bottom line. But
I honestly, I never really considered this band a new metal kind of a band. I always kind of figured this, I always kind of threw this band in like the dying gasp of like hard rock more than anything.
I don't know. I don't know. This is. I feel like this is one of those groups where one day they'll be sitting there sorting the CDs or records at the fucking library when we lose all the internet, and they'll be like, "We don't know which category to put these in, so we're gonna throw them in this miscellaneous bin over here." But well, folks, we brought you your albums 3. Were they all good albums? Well, two out of three, I guess. But we'll be back, of course, next week with another 3 albums and another 3 interesting albums, actually. And until then, we want to thank our guest Elon for coming on. It was a fun freaking show to do.
Absolutely.
And you sir are welcome back anytime because I feel like there's plenty of areas of music we could hit on, and maybe we can find something that's more your style. But it's luck of the draw with us. It really is. But where can people find what you do, man? Where can they find you if you want?
Website is eclecticcleric.com if you're looking for coaching or consulting. You can find me on most socials at Eclectic Cleric, all written as one word with 2 C's in the middle. You can also find me leading meditations on Insight Timer under my name. And those three website, Eclectic Cleric, at Eclectic Cleric on your socials, and on Insight Timer under my name. Those are the 3 best ways to find me.
All right. Well, there you go, folks. And of course, some of those links, if not all of them, will be in the description of the podcast.
Great.
And for all the listeners, just to click and listen and go to. But Chancy, where can they find you besides whipping yourself like the guy from freaking Passionate from Da Vinci Code after bringing this album?
Well, you got Instagram and TikTok. It's the Red Eye Roundtable. On X, it's Red Eye Table. And waiting ever so diligently to pull out my nuclear option to ruin your entire week, Jeremy. This isn't even the worst thing I've thought of to bring here, man. I still have that one thing in my pocket that I couldn't even get through, all right?
Oh, you've brought worse than this, I will say that. But you can, of course, find both your musers on Facebook as the Uncensored, Unapologetic, and Untamed Podcast Collective. You can find us on X Baby and the Gram as that Juggalo Bastard. You can find us on TikTok as that Juggalo Bastard Podcast. And of course, you can find us on YouTube as Monogam Music Musings, as the only place to see the videos nowadays is YouTube after the show's release. But we are also proud members of the Blind Knowledge Network and Parapost Network. Because all knowledge was blind until Chancy brought forth this album, and then they just blind themselves again because they didn't want to see this shit. But
it's still an oral experience. You really have to drive your ears out. You can't just blind yourself.
They didn't want to see the cover of the album. It saddens them. But come back next week, folks. You
should do a whole episode of like, what is this album? Look at this album cover. What kind of music do you think is inside? That was
nice.
What was inside? I looked at it. I was like, oh, this is like low grade new metal. Like this is wannabe new metal.
And you were right.
The title. I mean, just the title. So aggressively mopey.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know, but I thought it was a rap album, so I don't fucking know what to tell you. But come back next week, folks. Have a good night, everybody. Musers out.